In the stillness of night, wisdom came and stood by my bed. She gazed upon me like a tender mother and wiped away my tears and said, I have heard the cry of your spirit, and I am come to comfort it. Open your heart to me, and I shall fill with light. Ask of me, and I shall show you the way of truth. And I said, who am I, wisdom? And how came I to this frightening place? What manner of things are these mighty hopes and these many books and strange patterns? What are these thoughts that pass as doves in flight? And these words composed by desire and sung by delight? What are they? What are these conclusions, grievous and joyous, that embrace my spirit and envelope my heart? And those eyes which look at seeing into my depths and fleeing from my sorrows, and those voices mourning my days and chanting my littleness, what are they? What is this youth that plays with my desires and mocks at my longings, forgetful of yesterday's deeds, rejoicing in paltry things of the moment, scornful of the morrow's coming? What is this world that leads me whither I know not, standing with me in despising, and this earth that opens wide its mouth to swallow bodies and lets evil things to dwell on its breast? What is this creature that is satisfied with the love of fortune, whilst beyond its union is the pit, who seeks life's kiss, whilst death does smite him, and brings a pleasure of a minute with a year of repentance, and gives himself to slumber, the wild dreams call him? What is he who flows with the rivers of folly to the sea of darkness? O wisdomer of things are these. Welcome to this fourth sharing on the recovery curriculum, Metacognition, living life by learning how to learn. This web share has been preceded by 3 other webinars that have focused on the 3 levers of the recovery curriculum. The recovery curriculum was first brought into the attention of educators, psychologists, counselors as a theory for helping our learners learn during the pandemic. The beginning work of Barry Carpenter, CBE Professor of Mental Health and Education from Oxford Brookes University in the UK, and Matthew Carpenter, Principal at Baxter College in the same country, talks about the recovery curriculum as a curriculum of loss and life. That is, we can only have support our learners in schools, in learning institutions, colleges, universities, daycares, primary schools, secondary schools, special schools, vocational schools, learn if we first acknowledge what they have lost. In a think piece, Carpenter wrote, and I quote, "When the children return to school, there needs to be a recovery curriculum in place. Suddenly, daily routines have evaporated, and with it, any known curriculum framework. No more rushing to get the school bag ready and running out of the door to begin the journey to school. For most children, their daily goal in going to school is not just to learn, but to see their friends and to feel a sense of self-worth that only a peer can offer. You cannot underestimate the impact of the loss of that social interaction. It is as key to their holistic development as any lesson. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and the brain grows in the context meaningful human to human interaction. What will the children be making of this period of non-attendance? What worries will they have because grown-ups have now stopped them going to school indefinitely? End of quote. In other words, the recovery curriculum hinged on what Carpenter calls 5 levers: the lever of relationships, community, and transparent curriculum, which we have looked into in the previous web shares, in the previous online discussions and sharing, all contribute to allowing learners, whether we're talking about very young children, those in daycare or those in early childhood care and development education, or those in college, adult learners, young adults who have continued with their college programs or degrees during this time, and everyone in between, of course. Those who are transitioning from high school to tertiary education, those who are in grade 11 and grade 12, those who've enrolled for the STEM strand or the UMS strand and whatnot, and those in secondary and primary school. These 5 levers, focusing on relationships, community, transparent curriculum, and today about metacognition, will, according to Carpenter, help schools recover what has been lost and thus motivate learners to continue with the core curriculum, as some may call it, with subjects that they have to take or credits that they need to accomplish or gain. In a comment from Dr. Tina Ray, also a leading author, prolific writer and academic, famed for her Boxes series with Nurture UK, has endorsed the recovery curriculum and has said, and I quote, "A recent survey undertaken by the charity Young Minds in March 2020, this was done in the UK, revealed that the current coronavirus pandemic is having a profound effect on young people with existing mental health conditions. Although they understood the need for the measures taken in response to the virus, the report says this did not lessen the impact. Many of those who took part in the survey reported increased anxiety, problems with sleep, panic attacks, or more frequent urges to self-harm. This is the current situation of our learners. Although the survey was undertaken in the previous year, it is safe to assume, given our observations and given what we're hearing from not just the students enrolled in our learning communities, but also their parents, their families, their friends, we know we have a deep understanding of how our learners are, what they have come to experience because of the losses that they have to manage, that they have to navigate through, that they need to grieve and mourn. And as Dr. Tina Ray continues in her commentary concerning the need for attending to these 5 levers of the recovery curriculum, and I quote again, "This is why we need the recovery curriculum in every school across the country. This will be an essential element in ensuring that children and young people and the adults in every school community can safely return to the school context during this ongoing pandemic." The recovery curriculum identifies the need for compassionate and trauma-informed leadership at this time which oversees the development of curricula, which therapeutically meets individual needs. This will be a new and more humane and compassionate approach which addresses the embeds, the essential elements of relationship, community, transparent curriculum, metacognition, and as we will be learning and focusing on tomorrow, space. End of quote. How do we begin to help learners acknowledge loss and life? By focusing on this fourth lever called metacognition. To understand, of course, we've set ourselves with the poem from Khalil Gibran entitled A Visit from Wisdom. What we read, of course, was the first half of the poem where the visited asks questions such as, what manner of things are these mighty hopes and strange patterns? What are these thoughts that pass as doves in flight? In these words composed by desire and sung by delight, what are they? These questions, of course, bring us to understand initially what metacognition is. We've all heard the word. We've heard it from research. We've heard it from educational methodologies. We've defined metacognition as thinking of thinking, just as meta-learning is defined as learning how to learn. I make this emphasis because we need to comprehend that the recovery curriculum is not just about learning. It's also about really thinking about thinking. When we learn, we do a lot of thinking, of course, but it takes more than just learning, the active process of changing our behavior from everything it is that's coming to us via experience, everything that is coming into us as input. It's not just this relative change of behavior, but it's all the thinking that goes on while we're actively learning, whether that's through a virtual session or through a module. Metacognition is more than just the thinking that happens in learning. It is also the thinking that happens elsewhere, the thinking that supports everything else that we do. Metacognition, for example, as it's applied in the recovery curriculum, also covers the thinking that we do when we're trying to survive this pandemic, when we're trying to cope with everything we have lost during this pandemic. Carpenter and Carpenter gives us a list of things that children have lost. They've lost friendships and social interaction. They've lost significant dynamics. They've lost spaces. They've also lost their peace of mind, which has been replaced by, as Dr. Tina Ray observed after looking through the results of that survey, anxiety. It's been replaced by anxiety, which has eaten away on the positive mental health of children. Metacognition, therefore, is not just about learning. It's also about thinking as we go through our daily lives in and out of school, within our families, in the community, when we address needs, not just academic needs, but all sorts of different needs. How do we put this into better context as we use this hour to speak about what this might mean? What does it mean to use this tool or this instrument of metacognition to be able to help our children recover what they've lost and gain from future experiences, in SLSDB, future experiences in Ibabaw Estancia Elementary School, or with our teachers and counselor in Mandawi Christian School. What does it mean to use metacognition so that they don't keep losing what they've already lost? They can also gain from experiences and recover recoverable losses. We define metacognition as a fourth lever, and I go back to the think piece of Carpenter and Carpenter, so important and fundamental in our use and employ of the recovery curriculum. They write, in different environments, students will have been learning in different ways. It is vital that we make the skills for learning in a school environment explicit to our students to reskill and rebuild their confidence as learners. This is what it means to use metacognitive strategies during this difficult time. It's important that learners are able to think about the skills that they need to rebuild and reskill themselves so that they grow confident, not less confident, as many students are, of course, undoubtedly experiencing during these days. We've heard of comments such as, after a year of modular learning or after a year of hybrid education, I feel like I've not learned anything. We've seen posts, we've seen memes and pictures as well as commentaries from social media from students frustrated about their experience the whole year through. It's an oft-quoted comment that we've heard them say, it feels like I didn't learn anything from the semesters that I've been doing, the subjects that I've been attending online. And this is not just frustrating, it also erodes the self-esteem and the self-efficacy of many learners, even the best ones. Even the best of learners pre-pandemic have felt this shortage of confidence. They felt that because so much has changed, they just feel like they couldn't go through, they couldn't be learning through material, the same material or similar material that they've been effectively learning before the pandemic. Before we continue, it's really important to underline those two words of reskill and rebuild. This is the focus of the metacognition lever of the recovery curriculum. We wish, through activities, which of course I'll be sharing from the proposed St. Louis School of Don Bosco school helping program, what other counselors might call a guidance plan or guidance program. These activities are concrete examples of how we can put metacognition in its place in helping learners rebuild and reskill so they get that confidence back, and so that this renewed confidence will gently push them forward to effectively learn through the semester up ahead in the school year that precariously, for a lot of learners at this time, lies ahead of them. Some learners are asking the question, is this the way we're going to learn for another year? Especially now with surges still happening, waves still occurring. and variants emerging. I share with you that excerpt from the St. Louis School of Don Bosco to begin our better understanding of using metacognition as a tool or as an implement to increase the confidence of learners. The plan, as it has been presented to us in the previous webinars, comes in the three domains of personal, social, academic, and career. And as you will later on see, each plan or each domain has been peered into through the lens of the recovery curriculum. In this excerpt, you will see, or we will be talking about, three activities that will allow us to use the metacognition lever with learners across these three domains. The first one, and we always emphasize that this is the first because the recovery curriculum, before diving into career, before looking into academics or material that should be learned in school, wishes to really address the personal social needs first. It is only in addressing these needs first that we can motivate learners to go ahead with their learning. This is something that has been proposed for the fourth quarter. Of course, these are highlight activities, which means that so much more can go on during these particular times. Here, we're providing only a sample or a sampling of what can go on and how things can go on, emphasizing those levers. This first activity is entitled Gifted to Give. It can never be every man and woman for himself. As we've learned, emphasizing the previous levers of relationship and community, we've always kind of highlighted this in the previous activities that we've shared. We have to be mindful of other boats around us, other people around us, other students, other classmates, other families who are struggling and coping with the pandemic. Mindful of this, what can we give, thankful that we ourselves are still afloat? By the end of this quarter, by the end of this activity, participants should have built a realistic picture of where we are in this perfect storm of the pandemic. This picture can be balanced further when we understand that there is a rainbow after every storm, as the saying goes. At the end of the final quarter, these rainbows or gifts will be identified, and learners will find ways to give knowing they have been gifted. In order to rebuild and reskill ourselves to become confident learners, it is important that we understand that beyond our difficulties, beyond our personal social difficulties, beyond all the changes in family, all the changes in the school space as an altered environment, there are things that we can be thankful for. There are things that we can be grateful for. There are things that we can still continue appreciating. And there might be new discoveries that have come forth because of the challenges of this pandemic. And it's that that allows us to think about our thinking process. In this particular activity of Gifted to Give, learners can be given the image of a rainbow, the colors of the rainbow, with each strand of color representing one gift that they have been gifted during this time. This activity, of course, pushes them gently towards acknowledging not only what has been lost, but what they have in fact gained. It brings them to the understanding that, yes, I've lost something, but they've also been, through this activity, given the chance to identify those things that they have discovered, those things that they've acquired, things that they've achieved, things that they were able to do at the first or initially never thought that they could actually do it. Whether this comes in the form of providing them a picture, an image, or a metaphor, in this case, the rainbow, for example, we can provide a rainbow image in a piece of paper in their modules. We can also unlock this part of this reflective exercise or activity by showing them a picture of a rainbow on screen virtually and having them think about at least 7 or 8 gifts representing the colors of the rainbow that they have received during this difficult time. Whether we do it that way or perhaps play certain games that will have them think about what gifts they've received. Among very young learners, we can bring an empty box, okay, or an empty box that has been wrapped as a gift. This can be a real gift too, if you'd want. But for the purposes of this activity, a gift wrapped box that we can pass around in a group of young learners allows them to think about or to conceptualize, to imagine gifts. And when we ask them a question, what gifts have you received during this pandemic? We can turn their attention or their memory back to their birthdays, their pandemic birthdays. That is the birthdays that we've celebrated or not because of stay-at-home orders and restrictions. A lot of us have been doing these birthdays at home. We've never even been able to go out as we used to. It's been difficult going elsewhere, going to the beach, for example, for a birthday party. And many of us have to contend and be content with birthdays at home. For some of us, even very silent birthdays at home, very quiet times of just celebrating with family. When we redirect young learners' attention to these birthdays and ask them, what gift did you receive during your birthday? We can then prod them by asking if you can think of a gift that you would want to receive during or in your next birthday, what would it be? And the main focus of this activity, of course, is not just the gift, but how this gift, okay, to think about thinking, to think about this gift and making it an instrument or tool for being able to reach out to others. Some other questions, some other probing questions you'll see here as highlighted in this part of the plan. This we can ask in more understandable tone and manner to younger learners. These questions, of course, as you see them here, will be understandable to most learners in grade 4 or grade 5 upwards. What gifts have you received? What rainbows do you see up ahead? Even during this difficult time of the pandemic, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a rainbow at the end of the storm. Bearing these gifts and expecting brighter days ahead, how do you think you can share these with others around you? So this is one activity that really gets the metacognitive abilities of our learners out there. How? Well, if it's not been clear yet, this activity of appreciating, acknowledging that despite this difficult time, we have been gifted in some way. And that this giftedness, going, of course, back to the theme of the Roman Catholic Church, allows us to give to others because we have been gifted, because something has been given to us. This same giftedness allows us to be a gift to others. And this is metacognitive in nature because this allows, as Carpenter and Carpenter defines it back there, and as we've read it from the Think piece, it allows our learners to rebuild and reskill so that they can be more confident. Thinking about the gifts that we have, the strengths that we have, allows our learners to be more confident and to move on, continue learning how to learn so that they can continue surviving, so that all of us can continue living. Before we proceed to the next activity, it's important that we comprehend just how important the metacognition lever is. During this pandemic, because we have to turn to educational methods such as giving our learners designed modules or having them go through virtual modules or virtual modules too, subjects that have been prepared in databases or in virtual academic platforms that they go through at their own pace. This structure, this amount of structure that has come to replace face-to-face education has disabled a lot of our learners. Sometimes they even don't think about what they think anymore because everything has been thought out for them. The level of creativity, the level of innovation, the level of critical thinking has, I believe, gone down because everything has been planned out for them. They know that next week they will be doing this. They know that they'll have to accomplish this. The next page of the module tells them they have to be studying this. Everything has been thought out. And that's not such a bad thing. I'm not saying that I'm against that. No, that structure is necessary for children to have a sense of meaning, to have a sense of purpose on a daily basis. That structure helps a lot, especially for very anxious learners. Knowing where the curriculum is headed is, in fact, that third lever we discussed during the previous webinar, the transparent curriculum. They need to know where we're going. However, it has also disabled many of our skills, including metacognitive skills. Everything is spoon-fed at the moment. Instructors in college, for example, might say, please read chapter 5. Next week, we meet for a synchronous session, and we're going to have a quiz or an oral recitation about that chapter. And you go ahead and read that chapter. So everything is kind of planned out, and there is little room to think about thinking, concerning questions from similar to that opening poem we read earlier. That is, I don't think why I'm learning anymore. I don't think about what is the relevance of this. I just do it because I need to complete this semester. I need to finish it. I need to do this activity to get merit or to get academic credit, and that's it. The metacognition ability, the metacognitive ability of learners in terms of using important life skills such as judgment, decision making, problem solving, all the thinking about problem solving, all the thinking about creating prudent judgments, all the thinking that has to come with creative thought and creative problem solving, that has been arrested, that has been stunted because everything has been prepared for us. Everything is coming onto us in a silver plate. This is the module, go ahead, do it. There's no questioning anymore. There's no dialogue. This is, of course, how researchers handle De Bruin and Dressel, in their article appearing in the Metacognition and Learning journal entitled Individual Differences. You'll find this in your screen. In local and global metacognitive judgments, see what or how metacognitive abilities are. They're our abilities to be able to look into areas of interest, subjects, using metacognitive judgments. And that has been disabled at the moment. It's been disabled because, as I said, everything is coming pre-programmed. And little thinking is going into what we're learning. We're just learning in order to get credit, in order to finish the semester, in order to finish the school year. That's it. This is why increasing opportunities for metacognition by reflection or self-reflection, by having our students use again this introspective ability, is an important component of helping them recover. And in this case, helping them recover the lost confidence, the lost self-confidence. Here's the second activity now, and this one falls under the academic domain. Of course, these categorizations are not definite categorizations. We're not talking about that activity gifted to give not being usable or relevant in the academic domain. Of course it is. Just as this batang bata ka pa metacognitive activity is relevant and useful in the personal social domain and in the career domain. This activity will have learners reflect on the innovation of the drive-through graduation, which of course happened in SLS DB. Congratulations to the learning community for that. Learners are challenged to apply such sustainability thinking to their learning. In this activity called Batang Bata Ka Pa, marami ka pang kailangang malaman at intindihin sa mundo. That is how, of course, the song goes. And this song extends to how learners can not only keep afloat, but learn from new teaching methods. Academically, educators and teachers, counselors such as ourselves, are also innovating. We're also thinking about thinking. We're also thinking about what we're doing. We're also thinking about new ways, new strategies, new delivery systems, new teaching methods. And it's a good thing if we can meet in between. As educators and as learners, we meet in between. And we see, or we find a way how this meeting, okay, how this compromise can maximize our experiences within the learning community. There's much to learn from SLS DB. It's a good thing that this is being heard by other counselors too in other schools. I'm sure that you're also doing your bits of innovation, your bit of thinking about thinking, your bit of metacognitive activity where you are. It's really the way to go. It's really how we can adapt and how we can make use of the situation we're in that demands this metacognition ability. I read from the parts that you're now seeing in your screen. As an academically excellent institution, SLSDB paves the way forward to innovative and responsive learning by emphasizing the skill of learning how to learn. After reflecting on the innovation of the drive-through graduation, learners are challenged to apply such sustainability thinking to their learning. We can ask Ibabaw Estancia Elementary School, for example, what have you been doing? What have you done that best exemplifies this sustainability thinking? So you see, doing this or answering this question now, what have we done in our school community, allows you to think about the thinking process that has gone on in our schools since the beginning of this pandemic. It forces us to think about what have we implemented, what programs have we done, what programs have we changed in response to the learning difficulties or the learning challenges brought upon by brought upon us by this pandemic. And it's the same question for Mandawi Christian School. It's also to ask, how have I innovated? How have I sustained or supported learners maintain their learning throughout this period? If SLSDB has had their drive-through graduation, that was very innovative. Of course, the first drive-through graduation, and so far the only drive-through graduation that has ever occurred in the Philippines. This is an example of really looking at sustainability thinking and allowing this type of thinking to help us know what activities will be helpful for learners in the coming months. This highlights responsive, innovative, and sustainable learning in learning how to learn strategies. Really, the key phrase is thinking how to think, or thinking about thinking. These questions of what innovative strategies have your learning communities been able to do allows us to be inspired, because innovative thinking, of course, is not just something that we have yet to do. Again, as I pointed many times already in this share, schools have done a lot of innovative strategies in order to continue learning, in order to think how to think and learn how to learn, so we can continue surviving and living through this pandemic as one learning community. I'd like to share with you, before we proceed to the last bits, the last example here of what questions we can ask and what activities we can do, how this can be concrete, or how this can be made concrete in our schools. Other than playing the song Batang Bata Ka Pa, which of course allows high schoolers and young adult learners really think about what they've gone through in the previous pandemic year. We can utilize this activity by activating the exploratory spirit of young learners. When we're in nursery or when we're teaching kindergartners, it will be good, for example, to have a circle time that's devoted to making these young minds, as in a game of pretend, to have them pretend they're explorers, you see? To have them pretend that they're like Dora, for example, Dora the Explorer, or to have them pretend like they're going into a forest or a jungle the first time, or that they're exploring a new place for the first time. Doing this pretend game, we can equip them with makeshift telescopes and go around the classroom, and we can, well, when I say classroom, of course, I mean both the physical classroom and the virtual classroom. We can have them look around through these telescopes and have them pretend or imagine that they're looking at the community, they're looking at the world, quote unquote, for the first time. And we can ask them simplified questions far simpler than those that those that we ask secondary or older learners. We can ask them the question, what exciting new thing are you seeing? And this exciting new thing that they will no doubt tell us about when we ask them questions like that. So what did you see when you went around your home? If you were dealing with very young learners and their parents or their guardians or their carers virtually, for example, you can have the parent and the child go around the house to peer in across their gates or to look into what is happening outside. Just have them take a look and have them pretend that they're explorers. And then when they come back on screen, you can then ask them, what exciting new thing did you discover today? This is thinking about thinking. They've been doing their exploring, they've been doing their observing, they've been doing their watching, their listening, and you're asking them to think about these thinking processes, I should say. And that really, again, utilizes their skills, their higher order skills. So it's not just feeding them, okay, this is a picture, tell me about what you see. All right, this is the next page in the handout, or this is a story I'd like you to listen to, so what do you think? Of course, they have their own level of that also brings out a whole level of thinking, doesn't it? But it's a different thing to have them think about their own thoughts, have them think about how they're thinking about certain things, about what their observations were, or what they saw, or what they listened to, etc. That's just a wonderful thing. It's a powerful thing because it adds an extra layer of complexity. It pushes the boundaries of understanding and learning, so to speak, when we think about thinking, when we do or create opportunities for metacognitive processes to occur or to happen. So this is how we can use it. We can use the song, Batang Bata Ka Pa, to basically have them remember certain things. Or for younger learners, we can have them go through and do some moving activities, movements, or moving exercises to really get their metacognitive powers out there, to help them display their metacognitive abilities. Isn't that wonderful? We proceed now to the third and last activity. So we've looked at two different activities so far, haven't we? We've looked at the gifted to give activity and this Batang Bata Ka Pa activity, which can be done as a pretend game among younger learners. Before we proceed to the next and final strand, we will, of course, give time to those who are here. We're joined by clinic staff of RBE Psychological Services, by clinic manager Josh, and of course our clinic IT, Jurley. And they might have certain thoughts too concerning how we can use metacognitive activities to push us forward. Before that, I also want to share this innovative method that the clinic is proposing we do in or with learners in SLS of DB. When all these shares are done, there will be a time for implementation, of course. And taking inspiration from the buddy program of the guidance and counseling staff of SLS DB, and also taking inspiration from the metacognitive lever of the recovery curriculum and the spiritual activities of SLSDB, we will be proposing that when the classes begin, when virtual classes begin and when modules are being rolled out, a staff from RBE Psychological Services immerses himself or herself in these meetings, whether they're virtual meetings or group chats, etc. The clinic staff will be a buddy. They will be a buddy to a class. For example, I can imagine myself being in the English class, for example, or being with the English teacher for the grade 5 class or the grade 4 class. This innovative method will have the buddy be part of the class. And just as there are confessors, for example, during spiritual activities when we still had face-to-face activities back in the day, this buddy will be on standby during this class. Let's say, for example, there was a grade 5 English class tomorrow at 11 a.m. online. This system will have me, as a buddy, immerse myself in this class, ready to listen to learners who might have mental health issues, or who might have issues that he or she or the teacher believes is addressable by the school helping professional. This can also work in many beneficial ways for the teacher, because it also provides an opportunity for co-teaching or team teaching, so that instead of having just one teacher, i.e. in this illustration or example, the English teacher, there'd be a mental health provider there too. This also enhances or enriches the curriculum, so that if this English class, for example, might be speaking about, let's just say, reading comprehension, then the mental health worker from the clinic will be able to provide help to this teacher, and also really point to things which could enrich, extend, and deepen the learning in class. The English teacher can also give time for this buddy to motivate the class. So it works in a lot of different beneficial ways for the teacher as well as for the learners in that classroom. It improves the first level of relationships. That is, there's this ongoing relationship not just between the teacher and the class, but a new relationship that's being built among the learners or the students, the pupils in that class, with their teacher and with the mental health service provider. It makes the curriculum a bit more transparent, because then learners are feeling that this is not just about learning how to improve reading comprehension, but there's also, if the mental health worker is able to input, of course, certain activities, such as the reading material might be about mental health, so that there's an integration now of the curriculum, and it's becoming transparent, because what we're reading is not just for us to improve our comprehension, but also to improve our state of mind. Okay. For reading comprehension, this grade 5 or this grade 4 class might be given a virtual or an online or a web article about how a US athlete, this is of course a true story, backed out from or withdrew from competition because of mental health concerns. So you see, it's become transparent. There's a sense of community that's built. New relationships are being formed, the first 3 levers of the recovery curriculum, and it also allows metacognition to take place. How? Well, it allows metacognition because the mental health worker, the buddy in the class, draws the attention of the learners from the explicit learning material, that is reading comprehension or the topic at hand, to thinking about why they're learning this. So it's the mental health worker, or the buddy in this case, who helps the teacher. So it really is beneficial for everyone, isn't it? It's beneficial for the school community. It's beneficial for the teacher, because then the teacher has someone else, a co-teacher, in this case. And it's beneficial for the class, because the class understands that the school is really concerned about my mental health. They're not just concerned about what I'm missing out on, what I need to learn, but they're also concerned about my mental health. Okay. Think about shadowing, for example. We have teacher assistants. We had them before. And shadows in class, teaching assistants, are helpful individuals. And I believe that this has not been done with so much how do you say, persistence, or so much energy or passion during this during learning throughout this pandemic. So it's important that we apply these innovative strategies in order to, as we've seen, really look into sustainability thinking. The last activity that we shall be talking about is excerpted from the career domain of the SLSDB school helping plan. And this one, because again, this is focused more on the career, is asking our learners the question, grade 11, grade 12 learners, how do I get there? Remember that these activities are all linked together, so that the previous activities that we've said about applying those three levers of relationships, community, and transparent curriculum all bear down on this particular activity and in future activities as well. Using ESG metrics, Bosconians will identify their resources to move close to identified opportunities. This activity will help them take from their career happy place and the opportunities they have identified for themselves. Participants will be able to identify then the capital they have for succeeding in the new world of work. It's very related to the gifted to give exercise, because here they're really looking at themselves about how they can use what they already have to get to their career happy place. If they say, for example, I wish to study biology during my university days, or once I graduate from grade 12, I'd like to take a biology degree. And asking them the question, how do I get there, will have them think about their own capabilities for making that happen. Do you have the necessary scientific attitudes, for example, that are needed for one to succeed in this scientific field of biology? How do we use these questions? Well, I say questions because, of course, there are probing questions that can have participants identify environmental, social, and government resources, okay, such as scholarships, etc., experiences, previous experiences. With younger learners, how is this activity translated? How is this activity made developmentally appropriate? Well, it's quite easy, really. Of course, having learned about the happy places, or well, we can call them dreams, yes? Everyone has dreams, even very young. Young learners have them. I want to become this and that in the future. So there's a dream that we've had them talk about in previous activities, and now we can ask them the simple question of what will help you achieve that dream? Okay, what will help you get there? Activities or games that are useful here will be maze or treasure hunt activities, or games such as well, on paper, if there's a module that they're doing, they could finish a maze type of activity, so to get them, or to have them thinking about getting from point A to point B, right? So on paper, it can be as simple as having them think about this character going from point A to point B, finishing, i.e. finishing the maze, and then asking them, just like this character who needs to finish this maze, you have a dream that you want to go to as well. You have a dream that you want to achieve. Now, how do you find your way to achieving that dream? Again, a metacognitive skill. because it has them think about their dreams. It has them think about what they're projecting in the future. I hope this has been helpful for all of us. In the interest of time, we will perhaps save the comments of clinic staff for the next webinar, which will be on the fifth and final lever of the recovery curriculum, space. In the last hour, we've looked at 3 activities that we can do with our learners, young and not so young, adolescent or young adult learners, to have them think about their thinking, to have them live their lives in this difficult time of the pandemic by learning how to learn, by using skills to rebuild and reskill their confidence so that they'd have a firmer grasp of the idea that beyond the modules, beyond my teacher or my advisor's prodding or the structure that is being given to me by the school community, there is something in me that I can use to raise and to boost my confidence. There is something in me that I can use to continue to learn. There is something in me that can help me think about my own thinking, and therefore get through the pandemic, not just survive this pandemic, but really live a life despite this pandemic. We end our sharing today with a reading of the other half of Khalil Gibran's wonderful poem, A Visit from Wisdom. We all hope, of course, that we've had that visit from wisdom today, thinking about our own thinking and learning how to learn using the lever of metacognition from the recovery curriculum. And she answered, saying, "You would see, human creature, this world through the eyes of a god, and you would seek to know the secrets of the hereafter with the thinking of men. Yet in truth is this the height of folly. Go you to the wild places, and you shall find there the bee above the flowers, and behold the eagle swooping down on his prey. Go you into your neighbor's house, and see then the child blinking at the firelight, his mother busied at her household tasks. Be you like the bee, and spend not the days of spring looking on the eagle's doing. Be as a child, and rejoice in the firelight, and heed not your mother's affairs. All that you see with your eyes was and is for your sake. The many books and the strange patterns and beautiful thoughts are the shades of those spirits that came ere you were come. The words that you do weave are a bond between you and your brothers. The conclusions, grievous and joyous, are the seeds that the past did scatter in the field of the spirit to be reaped by the future. That youth who plays with your desires is he who will open the door of your heart to let enter the light. This earth with the ever open mouth is the savior of your spirit from the body's slavery. This world which walks with you is your heart, and your heart is all that you think that world. This creature whom you see as ignorant and small is the same who has come from God's side to learn pity through sadness and knowledge by way of darkness. Then wisdom put her hand on my burning brow and said, Go then forward and do not tarry, for before you walks perfection. Go and have not fear of thorns on the path, for they deem not lawful save corrupted blood. Thank you very much for being here. I hope to see you again in the next share. This has been Robbie Chavez, Head of Services at RBE Psychological Services, your mental health pathfinder.